minutes now. The Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, with support from UK International Development and in collaboration with the multimedia group Adom FM, Inshira FM, Asempa FM and Joy FM, is organizing the Citizen Town Hall to engage Ghanaians on their expectations of the new government. Now, the program brings together various stakeholders with the aim of assisting the government in making informed decisions to address national challenges. Now, let's join the conversation.
Are particularly timely, given the renewed interest in constitutional and local governance reform in the current political climate. We are pleased that today's forum brings together key actors, policymakers, development partners, civil society, and citizens to reflect on what we heard and how best to respond. We are hopeful that the findings and recommendations emerging from these dialogues will enrich ongoing efforts at constitutional review, particularly as they relate to accountability, local government reforms, decentralization, and the delivery of public services. The perspectives shared by women, youth, persons with disabilities, and other marginalized groups underscore the need for a more inclusive and accountable democratic process. We wish to express our deep appreciation to all our partners, especially the FCDO, for supporting this initiative. We also thank the many citizens across the country who participated enthusiastically and candidly shared their hopes and concerns. As we listen to today's presentation, I encourage all of us to consider how we can individually and collectively contribute to building a more responsive, inclusive, and accountable governance framework. Thank you, and I wish us all a fruitful engagement.
Thank you, Frederick Adujamfi. This activity was supported by the FCDO, so I would like to invite the head of their political and governance team, Homan Norozi, to give us a remark for this event. Homan. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director for Programs and Operations, CDD Ghana. Director of Policy Engagement and Partnership, CDD Ghana. Honorable Nana Ouo Ado from the Presidency. And may I also recognize the Executive Director of Transparency International Ghana with us today. Good morning, everyone. My name is Homan Norozi. As announced, I head up our governance and political team in the British High Commission, Accra. And it's my honor to represent the British High Commissioner, Her Excellency Harriet Thompson, at this event today. I'm grateful to the Executive Director and the team at CDD for such an honor. We're particularly grateful for the level of efforts put into this initiative to promote citizens' participation in governance. By this initiative, Ghanaian citizens in remote areas who have no chance of necessarily being involved in the debate on democracy and governance across the country have been given platforms to have their voices heard. Our support forms part of our commitment to promote effective governance and deepen democracy through the Ghana Governance Program administered by the British High Commission in Accra. And may I please recognize my colleague, Clara Ose, who's sitting there, who's the program manager for the Ghana Governance Program, and our colleagues Richard Ado and Richard Doro sitting over there, who also work on the program. We believe that democracy is not just about holding free and fair elections, but also about effective governance that enables active citizen participation. The UK is pleased to be contributing to Ghana's Open Governance Partnership priority of increasing citizens' participation in governance. Ghana's 5th Open Government Partnership National Action Plan commits to promote citizens' participation in governance, including enhancing women and persons with disabilities participation in politics and local governance. Like Ghana, the UK believes that citizens' participation in governance is important as it allows individuals to be part of decision-making processes and activities that affect their lives and society as a whole. This is a fundamental aspect of democratic governance and ensures that voices, perspectives, and interests of the people are considered in shaping policies, making decisions, and addressing societal needs. The British High Commission had the opportunity to participate in some of the regional consultations and were moved by how well-informed citizens of Ghana are and their enthusiasm to shape policies and politics. This was a reminder that citizens know what they want, and as a development partner, our role at the British High Commission is to help create spaces for them to engage and influence policy decisions. The Open Government Partnership commitments are not just the responsibilities of government of Ghana, but also civil society. The UK believes in the significant role of civil society organisations can play in propelling a democratic and just society. We are aware about the significant role civil society in Ghana have played and continue to play to influence changes in law and approaches to ensure the rights of all persons, and especially those of vulnerable members of our societies, are promoted and protected. We are proud of the work of the CDD for taking responsibility to provide platforms for every citizen to become active participants in Ghana's democracy. And we're proud to have been partners with you on this journey. So congratulations, CDD, and all of you here today, and all of those that have been part of the consultations over the period. As a friend of Ghana, the UK is ready to support you in the best possible ways to contribute to deepening Ghana's democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Homan. We have our special guest, and I would like to call my colleague Daniel Salome to introduce our special guest for this occasion.
Good morning, everybody, and you're welcome once again. Since she's our special guest, I needed to come very prepared, and so permit me if I read from my computer. So, Honorable Nana Ouo Ado is currently the Deputy Chief of Staff. She's in charge of administration. In 2022, she was appointed by the World Bank as a member of the World Bank Advisory Council for Partnership for Economic Inclusion. She is, in fact, a human rights lawyer in Ghana with over 30 years of experience in court practice, human rights advocacy and litigation, gender, governance, and social protection. Honorable previously worked with government as a gender minister, as a minister of gender, children, and social protection, and with civil society as the regional coordinator for the Africa Office of the Commonwealth and Human Rights Initiative. As a leading member of Ghana's civil society movement, she coordinated advocacy for the passage of bills and acts, including the RTI bill, Domestic Violence Act 2007, Human Trafficking Act, and the Disability Act. At the regional level as well, she was part of the CSOs that advocated for the adoption of the additional protocol to the African Charter on the Human Rights, on the Rights of Women, sorry. As a cabinet minister, She led the creation of a formal social protection system in Ghana and created a national household registry for social protection, the first ever in West Africa. She strengthened the Ghana legal and policy framework for gender, children, and social protection by leading the adoption of 5 key policies and operational plans. They include gender policy, social protection policy, child and family welfare policy, justice and the school feeding policy. Honorable is passionate about human rights protection, women's rights, governance, transparency, accountability, and the protection of key populations. Ladies and gentlemen, she's the lady of the moment. Can you please take the stage?
Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Happy to be back at a program with CDD. Thank you. The head of the political and governance team of the British High Commission, Nana Ouo Ado, the chair and members of the Constitutional Review Commission, distinguished civil society groups and colleagues of CDD, and distinguished guests and partners in governance. Good morning to you all. A few days ago, I had the privilege, together with some of you here, of meeting at the presidency where the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, met with several representatives of various civil society organizations. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the formation of a governance advisory council. This was a key pledge of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama from his 2024 campaign. And it was basically, or is basically, to strengthen transparency and transform governance in Ghana. At the end of the meeting, a senior presidential advisor for governmental affairs, Dr. Valerie Sawyer, was tasked with partnering with civil society to establish this council. This council will comprise civil society organizations, religious leaders, traditional authorities, the academia, labor unions, and citizens. It will serve as an independent watchdog that will be tasked with producing annual non-partisan reports on the state of governance, on the state of addressing corruption and human rights in Ghana. We are hoping this report will guide governance performance reviews and corrective policy actions, ensuring that our democracy remains vibrant and accountable to the people of Ghana whom we serve in governance. In the same spirit of reflection and accountability, I was honored to deliver a keynote address during the information dissemination session of the 2024 Public Opinion Research Report that was commissioned by agencies under the Office of Government Machinery a few weeks ago. And this session reminded us of an essential truth, and it is that governance must be people-centered. And public feedback mechanisms like this should no longer be optional or sporadic. They must be a permanent feature of our democratic practice. They must ensure that every voice, especially from the grassroots, is represented in the national policy conversations. This government is also demonstrating its resolve to address corruption, which the people and we have all said should be prevented and should be reduced. And so we saw the launch of Operation Recover All Loot. This is a case in point, an unprecedented initiative to investigate and recover the proceeds of corruption. And this reflects not just government stance, but also the shifting public expectations around integrity and around justice in governance. In just over 4 months, President John Dramani Mahama has prioritized participatory governance through a series of national fora. The first was the National Economic Dialogue in March, which brought together stakeholders to propose actionable solutions for macroeconomic recovery and growth. Then we had the National Education Consultative Forum, which was launched in February and traveled throughout the country, and which sought to shape inclusive reforms for our education sector. For economic empowerment and for strengthening the private sector, we also facilitated and organized the Kwewu Business Forum in April, and this also focused on empowering entrepreneurs and strengthening the private sector. These fora are not just symbolic, but they are strategic platforms that embody government's renewed social contract with Ghanaians. This is one that values dialogue, that values transparency, and that is focused on results that will ensure that the people's welfare is at the center of governance. Furthermore, on January 30, 2025, the President inaugurated the Constitutional Review Committee. This committee is chaired by Professor Kwesi Prempeh. It is an 8-member committee that is critically reviewing the 1992 Constitution to align it with contemporary governance needs and the citizens' aspirations. I'm happy members of the CRC are here with us. Please let's clap for them for the good job that they're doing. Their work is guided by insights from previous reviews and will be enriched by broad citizen consultation. We are all eagerly looking forward to the results and the report from the CRC. In 142 days, this administration has indeed taken decisive steps to bring governance closer to the people. And this is a process, and this is a continuum, and that's why we're happy CDD has also commissioned and is also going to tell us the results of their research. This event today, spearheaded by CDD Ghana, one of our foremost governance think tanks, marks yet another important milestone. These engagements and today's report demonstrates how citizens' voices and evidence-based insights can and should directly inform policy. The government takes this data seriously and will continue to work with civil society to ensure that our governance processes are not only inclusive, but accountable and effective. So thank you very much for this event today. We all look forward to fruitful, insightful discussions that will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nana Ouo Ado. Before we go on to the presentation that gives the findings from our town halls, I would like to acknowledge the various institutions that are present at this event. We have a representative from the Ministry of Education. We have a representative from Transparency International. The members of the Constitutional Review Committee are here. We have members from the Ministry for Local Governments. Representatives also from NALAG are present. We have reps from the Birth and Death Registry. We have reps from the US Embassy. We have a representative from IDEC. We have a rep from the National Youth Authority. We have a representative from the Royal African Generational Thinkers. Then our supportive partner, FCDO, they are also present here. So I would like to invite Dr. Kojo Asante, who is the Director of Policy, Engagement and Partnership at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana, to give us the findings from our town halls.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here and acknowledge all of our guests who have joined us today. I see our senior fellow, Prostitua, who I haven't seen for a while. So I'm glad that you are here and you're able to make it for this event. Because Prof. Techua was actually one of the facilitators, I think in Kumasi and somewhere else, I think Sujani or so. So really good to be here. Okay, we are also live on Adom FM and Joy FM, so that those who are not here in the room will be able to reach us. All right. Okay, ready. I have to, yeah, this is going to be. Where am I pointing? Okay, so this is the citizen expectation of the new government, findings from post-election town hall forums. Initially we were going to produce the report and then share it with you, but given that this is a forum where we bring everybody together, we wanted to hold on with the draft report and maybe use it also as some sort of validation and any additional input so that the final version, when it's printed, would have, you know, the endorsement and the input of everybody. And then we'll go back to the presidency and hand it over to Nana or the president himself, so that when we are referencing it, we know that you have it with you. The outline for the presentation, so the background to the town hall forums, the objectives of the town hall forums, our methodology, and then we'll talk about the findings, and then we'll draw some conclusions. So, difficult to see from here. In terms of the background, we didn't just decide that we should go out and have town halls because it's fun to go around Ghana and have town halls. We've been reflecting on the whole process between elections and the governing process. I think everybody says that we just treat our democracy as a democracy of just elections. After elections, everybody go home, right? And we've seen certain patterns over the years. So even when, depending on what the results of the elections, sometimes there is either an incumbent party, it's kinds of interpretation they give to their mandate becomes a problem. So it doesn't matter if you win by 1 vote. The way in which you couch your mandate can determine the tone of the governance that you set at the beginning. So one of the things we wanted to do with this exercise was trying to help that government to understand the mandate that is secured in the 2024 elections. In the NDC's case, a huge parliamentary majority, a two-thirds majority, and basically we haven't had that since, I think, 1996 or so. The president also, in terms of the gap between the first and the second, you know, a huge margin. So how does the government interpret its mandate? Sometimes in the past, foot soldiers or even vigilantes would say, we are the ones that won the election for the party, and therefore we should be prioritized above everybody else. You know, and there's all this internal party challenges that come with it. So sometimes getting a general perspective of where Ghanaians who at the end voted for the incumbent are thinking about what mandate they are giving to the new president. And also appreciating the existing realities after election. So you make manifesto promises, and then when you come and then they give you a briefing, you realize that the things that you want to do, most of them you cannot do, right? And often, because the politics is driven by manifesto promises, you will do it regardless of whether or not it would inure to the benefit of the population, right? So even as citizens, rather say, oh, you said you would do it in your manifesto, so do it, even if we will suffer, is to also bring that understanding and reality that, no, maybe on this promise, we should even be encouraging government to take it on, right? And really creating space for that kind of conversation to be had. And then getting the priorities of citizens for government, pursue long-term, policy reforms. There are structural issues that we have to deal with. And sometimes manifesto promises are very short-term. How do we create the environment within that 4-year cycle to even tackle some of the big governance reforms? So these are some of the things that were motivating us, that as soon as elections are over, let's get more views about what this mandate is about from citizens. And we use the format of a town hall to do that. In 2017, we actually used a post-election survey to do that same type of work. So this is a little bit different. The first time we're doing a town hall to get to this kind of information. So the overview of the town hall meetings. In the months of February and March 2025, we held 14 town hall meetings, 10 regional and 4 specialized town halls across 12 selected regions of Ghana. These regional town halls were purposely selected to capture regional diversity, socio-political dynamics, and grassroots perspectives. We've done a map of all the different places that we went to. We also, the 4 specialized ones were targeted at youth, women, PWDs, and the elderly. We had a lot of partners that we work with, and I want to congratulate them for partnering with us all across the country to make sure that we were able to get the relevant citizens to engage on these topics. So Ghana Federation of Disability, Democracy Hub, the Youth Empowerment for Life Ghana, Youth Breed Foundation, Youth Advocates Ghana, Youth Leadership Parliament, the Association of Ghana's Elders, Network for Women's Rights in Ghana, the Affirmative Action Bill Coalition, and then also a special thank you to Multimedia Group, particularly the Adon's brand. One of the things that we also tested this time around was how to introduce or utilize local language in the engagement. And really, I mean, if you were there, you would see the difference. When you begin to speak the local language, people feel more relaxed and want to engage. So I think for all of us who are working in this space, and even for government, we have to be very deliberate about how we do the engagement if we want them to be effective. So as we're doing this, just like we're doing it today, we are broadcasting. That's the same way we did with all the town halls where we do live broadcasts so that many people who are not there. But the use of local language and ADOM has been very, very helpful with that. Now, the forums brought together a diverse range of participants, civil society, traditional leaders, local officials, and the discussions focused on national issues such as local and constitutional review, anti-corruption, cost of politics, education, state-owned enterprises, electoral reforms, the economy, youth development, illegal mining or illegal small-scale mining, known as Galamsey. And the discussion for the special town halls, were focused for special demographic groups like the youth, the elderly, persons with disability, and women. So even though we had all these general questions, we thought for the specialized town halls, we needed to look at particular issues that concern these demographic groups that we targeted. I think we'll share more information with you on that. Now, we had a number of objectives for the town halls. The first objective was to provide a platform for citizens and stakeholders to express their expectations of the new government, as I explained, that this is almost like a reminder or reaffirmation, you know, of what the mandate that has been secured. Second, to identify key national and regional priority issues that require urgent attention by the incoming administration. So in a way, you'll find some overlaps, right, or between what citizen expectations are and what some of the key priorities are. And then third, to promote accountability and civic engagement in governance beyond the electoral process. We all want to get beyond elections and to the governing process. That's where the bread and butter issues are important. Fourth, to generate a comprehensive report outlining citizen concerns and expectations to be presented to government. Fifth, to facilitate a platform for young people, women, elderly, PWDs, and stakeholders to express their expectations of the new government. And then sixth, to identify key priority issues unique to demographic groups that require urgent attention by the incoming administration. And lastly, to promote inclusive civic engagement and accountability in governance among marginalized groups beyond the electoral process. You know, when you are involved in this and you've been around, you wish that we had a structure, a very systematic way of doing these engagements over and over again. It would really make government easy for government, but even for citizens. So it is one of the main things that we have to think going forward. You know, what should be the governance, the participation framework for citizens? We need something that is structured, that is more systematic than what we do currently. Our methodology. So we've talked about the 14 town halls and 12 administrative regions that, you know, the participants, as you say, broad range of participants. We had a total number of 1,331 participants, if you put them all together. If you break down in terms of age, you had 434 young people, so that's between the ages of 15 and 35. I think most of them were above 18. This statistical service is own categorization, so I don't think we had 15-year-olds. Vera, did we have 15-year-olds? 18 mostly, yes. So we had 434 in that category, 443 between the ages of 36 and 59, and 109 elderly persons who are above 60, and then 132 PWD. So I think it's a fairly good, you know, distribution, and particularly I think because we had these specialized areas, we're able to make sure that it was a good representation. And for gender, male 763 and female 568. There were just a few, I think 23, who didn't disclose gender. And this is just a quick breakdown. We don't have to spend too much time on that. Per region, in terms of the distribution. I mean, generally, for men and women, you know, it's good, you know. And then I think making those specialized forums also helped to make sure that we had the representation that we needed. The approaches to the town hall meeting. So the town hall meeting forums focus on the 10 themes that I talked about, and we'll be going through them. The topics were selected considering their high public interest during the pre- and post-election period. Now, during the town hall forums, each topic was introduced with a short presentation highlighting the relevance and the context of the subject, making use of Afrobarometer statistics, and then we also then presented the NDC policy commitments because basically that was what was going to guide government's sort of priorities. So we wanted to make sure people could also comment on that. Participants were engaged in a discussion based on some selected questions, and then during the specialized town hall meetings, in addition to the above themes, we also selected unique issues that were of concern to the demographic group. And that's where our partners really helped us, because they have been working in the space, so they knew the particular issues that were of concern. So let's go into the findings. So on local government, there were two issues that we were looking at. We've been talking about election of MMDCs for a long time. At some point, the issue was whether or not we should allow parties in. So everybody agrees to the election. So that's not been in dispute. But the question was whether we should allow parties in or not allow parties in. In 2019, we attempted it, and then, you know, it was sort of the president withdrew the amendment bill because there was no consensus on that. We didn't want to go and spend time talking about those issues because generally there's a sense that we should just get on with it. If we can even elect on non-partisan basis, we should at least elect. So we wanted to look at some other issues that had come up when we had gone around, we'd done a regional engagement on this matter, and there were some concerns about the way in which districts are currently sort of, you know, organized, and whether or not when you elect, you are going to have the kind of development impact that was needed. So there were two issues. One was proposals that, you know, instead of electing mayors in 260, I think there are 61 MMDAs now. So you have a mayor in Adenta, you have a mayor in Oyarefa or Amadina, you have a mayor. I mean, like you can begin, when you get to the urban area, you can begin to see that. So the first one was, should we just elect in sort of the urban areas? Because doing it across the country, you know, even you can think of cost, there are all kinds of issues about, you know, the fiscal readiness of these districts to function as separate districts. So that one was staggering. And then the second one was amalgamation, which is the Adenta or Yarefa one that I was talking about. That the way we have parceled out our districts, if you say you are going to elect mayor for, it wouldn't make sense in some urban spaces. So for staggering, for those who didn't believe that the staggering was necessary, they thought if the issue is cost, we should just combine the local government with the national election one and have it at the same time so that we save our cost. Now that has all kinds of constitutional issues, unless maybe the Constitutional Review Commission changes the dates for election so that we can have them, you know, together. But that's people's objection about it was really that if it's cost, then maybe find a different solution. Those who supported staggering thought that we needed to really test the system. You know, issues of logistical challenges, as I said, the readiness. You look at certain districts, you know, adding elections to it, does that really address your development issues? And then there were, so lack of resources. It was argued that certain districts lacked the preparedness for MMDC elections. So they thought that staggering is better. You will learn, you know, if you maybe in your first election, it's only metros that you are going to do the election. In terms of cost, it might also help in dealing with the cost of managing another layer of political actors or and so on. So those were the feedback we got from the staggering. On the amalgamation argument, so argument for amalgamation of district boundaries, the current district boundary system, particularly in urban areas, is inefficient. Many districts in rural areas have limited resources that hinder the delivery of essential services like healthcare, education, and sanitation. merging smaller districts to enhance service delivery by pooling resources and expertise. So that is for those who say amalgamation works. And I was giving an example of in Accra, you know, if you say you're going to have 33 mayors in Accra. Currently, even when a street light falls, you know, you don't even know who is responsible. So can you imagine adding a layer to the bureaucracy? You know, a mayor that must have his cabinet and all of those kinds of things. You have more people there, but the development issue will still be a challenge. And some people have said, you know, really, the way Accra is now, you can think of Accra, you can parcel it in maybe 4, you know, Accra West, you know, going into your Dansuman, Weja, you know, that area. Actually, people live their lives in that zone anyway. And those who are in the east part, going to Oyarifa, Dodowa, all these kinds of places, Accra Central, which now is like your AMA, there you can have Tema as another. So maybe 4 or 5, it's much more sensible for you to have 4 mayors or 5 mayors in Accra than 33 mayors in Accra. And I think you can say the same for Kumasi and so on. Those who are against amalgamation, amalgamation could weaken governance by making local administration less accessible. You remember that even the creation of regions was driven by the idea that if you have your own region, you are able to access more resources. So people feel that if you take that away, then they will be denied resources. And then financial empowerment efforts should focus on strengthening district capacity by giving them more resources to enhance. So that if the issue is, or some people think the issue is just not enough resources going to local government, and that's why we are not seeing the development issue. And then the rural-urban divide, it may marginalize rural areas by redistributing resources to urban areas, leaving rural communities even more overlooked. And then some people talked about job losses, right? So that's the debate around amalgamation. Proportional representation also came up, which I understand has also come up at the CRC. Citizens are in favor of proportional representation at district level for women, youth, persons with disability, and other marginalized groups in local assemblies. So some fishermen in the coastal districts express the need for the representation of fishermen at the local level. Proportional representation should not result in symbolic representation. Competency must be ensured if proportional representation for the marginalized is implemented. And then competition. The percentage for marginalized group is not to be appointed, but they must compete through elections. And so these are some of the sentiments, but proportional representation at local government level is one of the issues that people seem to support. So in terms of recommendations, implementing the election of MMDCs with strong consideration for non-partisanship. So again, in all our engagement, people still want non-partisan election of mayors. And then consider pilot tests to tackle logistical challenges before nationwide implementation. Address resource allocation concerns before considering district amalgamation, particularly in rural and in the northern regions. And then implement proportional representation to ensure seats for women, youth, PWDs, and marginalized groups in the local assembly. I don't think chiefs came into the conversation, even though I know that's one area that has been raised. So that's for local government. For constitutional reform, one of the questions that were posed was the Council of State. Abolishing the Council of State seems to be quite popular for some people. So those in favor of abolishing the Council of State, many participants advocated for the abolition of the Council of State due to its purely advisory role and a lack of impact on governance. So people are basically looking at more recent issues around the Council of State and saying they are not making the difference that it was set up to do. The Council of State selection process was seen as lacking transparency and was often viewed as partisan rather than neutral. Then there was recommendations for reforming. So the other alternative is reforming the Council of State. People want reform of the selection process, limiting the president appointment powers, and for more authority to be given to the Council of State to move beyond solely an advisory role. And the selection of the Council of State should be merit-based. So one of the issues on constitutional reform was on Council of State. The second one was the appointment of ministers from Parliament. So the argument against the appointment of ministers from Parliament, conflict of interest, people are concerned that MPs who are ministers focus more on the government work, leave the Parliament work, and it's not, therefore not able to check the actions of the executive. And then they raised the separation of powers issue. Participants were concerned that dual roles of MPs weaken checks and balances between the branches of government. So limiting or abolishing appointment of ministers from Parliament to strengthen the separation of powers, improve oversight, and boost ministerial performance. So generally, I think one can say that most people think that this separation between the dual roles of MP and minister should be one of the changes that should happen. We also asked a question around presidential and parliamentary term limits. So for presidential term limits, some participants supported a longer term for policy implementation, while others favored a shorter term to boost accountability. But across all regions, the majority of participants agreed that the current 4-year term with a maximum, agreed to the current 4-year term with a maximum of 2 terms. Some people even said 1 term. It's enough. Then parliamentary term limits, some participants expressed the view that the term limits should be established for the MPs with a suggestion of a maximum of 3 terms. However, others, particularly participants from Cape Coast, Bono East, opposed term limits, arguing that experienced MPs help maintain parliamentary productivity. I don't know what's happening in Cape Coast, Bono and Bono East, but maybe their MPs are doing well, are performing. But so that's the view on those issues. So for the policy recommendation, reform the Council of State to reduce presidential appointment powers and ensure diverse, merit-based, non-partisan selection. Limit or abolish the appointment of MPs as ministers to strengthen separation of powers. Maintain the current 4-year presidential term as we know it. Anti-corruption. So we did talk about oral. So the many participants backed the oral initiative, particularly to recover assets from corruption, and recommended expanding it to districts and communities to curb grassroots corruption as well. There were concerns over the effectiveness of oral. Concerns were raised about oral's risks of politicization, given its lack of posterior powers and overlapping sort of mandate with other anti-corruption issues. So those concerns are there. At the time we're doing it, oral has not been handed over to the Attorney General. So it'll be interesting to see what people still think about the oral issue. So I think the sentiment generally, law enforcement and sanctions on anti-corruption, recovery of stolen public assets, provision of preventive opportunities to combat corruption, and removing presidential immunity from corruption investigation. So that's one of the things, people think that the president should not have immunity from corruption, and something that we should be looking at. I think I've gone over this. Education. So the education conversation was generally around financing. I think even at the dialogue, a lot of the conversation was, how are we sustaining the financing of all these commitments that we are making? If you look at what has happened with the free SHS, it's, the impact on basic education, which is like the foundation for, for education quality, is one of the things that people have been concerned about. So the sentiments was that participants from various regions overwhelmingly agreed that basic education should receive greater priority and increased allocation of resources. I don't know if Kofi Asare is here, but or anybody from EduWatch, but I think, I think generally now if you're thinking of allocation percentage, it's almost 50-50 between basic and secondary, right? It's wider. It's widening. Okay, so all right. So the sentiments is that we are neglecting basic education, but how do you build a high rise with a very poor foundation? Right? Basic education suffers from poor infrastructure and a lack of learning materials. Weak foundation at the basic level lead to poor literacy at the basic, and then hinder success in higher education. And then there were concerns about the free SHS policy, the quality of implementation. More funding is needed, and issues need to be fixed before expansion. And then they suggested that parents may need to share more of the cost. So, I mean, it's back to government. This idea about what we should do with the free SHS policy. Citizens are saying we should look at the cost issue, maybe let parents be able to take some of the costs. Improving teacher conditions in rural areas by providing electricity, water, classrooms and materials, financial incentives for teachers posted in rural areas, and the provision of accommodation for teachers near the schools in rural areas, community-based training in teacher education program. So I think there's a big sentiment that, the distribution of teachers generally across the country in rural areas is a problem, and because there's a lot of the infrastructure that's needed to keep them there is not there, and we need to find a way to close that gap. So the recommendations we put together, we should prioritize resource allocation to basic education, to establish proper learning foundation, address quality concerns in free SHS policy before extending it further, provide comprehensive incentives for teachers in rural areas, including improved accommodation, financial incentives, and resource material. This is not new. This is just the same thing we've talked about for many years. Enhance technical and vocational training to address youth unemployment, strengthen implementation of inclusive education policies for children with disabilities. Elections, cost of elections or cost of politics. And I think one of the discussions was really whether we should have a defined campaign period. There was a general agreement on the need for a defined and limited campaign period. Suggestions for the duration varied from 3 months to 6 months. And the background to this is simple. If, based on the CDD work we have done since 2018, if you have presidential elections that at the minimum is costing you 100 million, and that was like 2022 dollars, $100 million. But that was 2022, so we know it's double now, right? Yeah, so, and then for MP, you're looking at $600,000, including, how they say, nurturing your constituency and all of those things, primaries and elections. When you look at those kinds of monies, it's mind-boggling. So if an MP comes into government and they have to recoup all of that money, there's no way corruption is going to be stopped. So we need to really look at even the time we campaign, because as soon as election ends, already the campaign has started. We know there's already a thank you tour that's going. And the next campaign is already started. in many countries, even in places like Senegal and so on, you have a very set campaign period. You will not see posters and billboards of politicians until the official campaign period starts. But in our case, billboards are left because there's already an intention to campaign for the next 4 years. And they will be there in our medians and so on for the next 4 years. Nobody takes them off. So we need to look at that as well. Participants had mixed views on subsidizing political parties through the Electoral Commission support, because I think party financing has also been an issue, that if almost everybody that is contesting for election, particularly the parties, are governments in waiting, then we shouldn't be treating them as some private entity that organizes their own thing and then they come into government. If they come with the wrong attitude and approach, we are all going to suffer. So the issue is that then maybe the state must contribute to creating this environment where we can reduce the use of money in politics. So there were mixed views. So those who support some support to political parties, or let's say candidates for elections, they say it would ensure fairness in internal elections. Some suggested abolishing election fees altogether to ensure fairer participation. Those who again say the politicians will misuse the public funds. So they don't think. And some of the ideas that have been put to, that it might not even be that you are giving money to political parties, but that, if the Electoral Commission goes to supervise internal party elections, and that you must make it mandatory that they supervise internal party elections, they don't charge. So that it's almost a subsidy for the party, right? So there is a support in kind to reduce the cost. Even if political parties want to have a meeting at the Great Hall or wherever it is, the use of spaces, and these are all reduce the cost of politics, and we can look at those kinds of support. So the recommendations: implement a transparent campaign financing regulations requiring public disclosure of all contributions, establishing reasonable spending caps, consider implementing a limited campaign period varying from 3 to 6 months. On youth development and economy, what actions should be taken to increase youth employment? Investing in agriculture was seen as one of the key avenues for jobs, food security. Calls were made to modernize practices and boost training to attract the youth. The young people were very interested in agriculture, but some of the basic things were like, where can they even go if they want information? If I'm a young person and I'm interested in agriculture, can I walk to my district assembly to an office and say, I'm interested? Where can you give me all the resources, how to acquire land, how to get these inputs? There's no place that they can go to get all this information, but they are interested. They even want to put themselves into groups to be able to do this work. So there were a lot of interest, and I think it's one that government should take an interest. Entrepreneurship, participants stressed the need for youth business support through lower loan rates and reduced small business taxes. Technical and vocational training, participants saw strong youth job potential in technical fields and urged more investment in TVET and apprenticeship. Also, domestic food production, manufacturing and value addition to local industries was also one of the reasons they gave for supporting. Then on Galamsey, what should be done about Galamsey? Our town halls in Central and Western region, residents raised concerns about Galamsey's harmful effect, including environmental damage and water pollution. Ban or declare a state of emergency. That was what we were hearing. And then reclamation of destroyed lands as actions that should be taken. So we are saying consider temporary mining bans or state of emergency declaration, rehabilitate affected farmlands and water bodies, develop coordinated land use management between government and landowners. On state-owned enterprises, the sentiments that came out of the deliberations were, one, MPs should not be allowed to sit on boards of SOEs. I think we've been talking about it over and over again, and we really need to get to that decision around the role of MPs sitting on boards. Boards and director appointments should be based on merit and competency, not party affiliation. Members of the ruling party should get or should not get first picks of appointments. Joseph, please make it, Nana Ouo is here so that she doesn't take the wrong information back. So should not get, if you say should get, then the people will take the wrong message. So members of ruling party should not get first pick of board appointments. Then the policy recommendation, implement selective privatization of appropriate SOEs and list privatized SOEs on stock exchange to enable public investment. Establish transparent and merit-based board appointment processes. Prohibit MPs and sitting politicians from serving on SOE boards and require asset declaration from SOE board members and executives. So, you know, currently you still have SOE CEOs who are also still executive members of their party, you know, and still holding those two portfolios. And we've had this discussion in the past about, you know, the separating government from party and how those kinds of roles, dual roles, make it difficult. So it's something we need to look at. Our specialized town hall forum for women, women representation, so law like the Affirmative Action Act face major implementation challenges. A legal framework and enforcement is needed to ensure the 30% quota for women in political roles is met. And then it was also emphasized that CSOs and other stakeholders should prioritize engaging and empowering young girls through education and training. Issues affecting women, there was a discussion about the government's sanitary pads initiative that was praised, but concerns were raised about its implementation. A strong monitoring system was recommended with a focus on reaching rural schools. It was recommended that government should support locally manufactured pads to reduce costs and support national businesses. Maternity leave, concerns were raised on the issues of workplace competition, which sometimes leads to the displacement of women from their professional positions after maternity leave. And then childcare facilities near workplaces would help women balance work and childcare without extended leave. Then women economic empowerment and agriculture. Participants emphasized the need for economic opportunities to be based on merit rather than political affiliation to ensure fairness and inclusivity. And then concerns were also raised about regulatory barriers to financial access. Women face challenges securing farmlands as landowners often reclaim it after higher yields. So there are certain experiences, particularly in rural areas, where we need to pay attention to. And the fair land tenure system was recommended to protect women's long-term access. So in terms of recommendations, establish legal framework and enforcement mechanism for 30% quota for women in political appointments, improve implementation of the sanitary pad distribution with strong monitoring mechanisms and focus on rural schools, create comprehensive support systems for victims of gender-based violence, including shelters, counseling, legal aid, the establishment of the Women Development Bank with efficient mechanisms that transcends political regimes, reform land tenure system to protect women farmers' rights to land. Okay, I'm getting to the end now. So persons with disability, one of the issues around stigma and inclusivity. I think you have to say it louder because I'm not repeating it. Okay, so first, the lack of disaggregated data on PWDs hinder policies from addressing specific disability needs. So data is important. PWDs face stigma in some communities. Education campaigns and support from traditional and religious leaders can help break cultural barriers. And then persons with albinism face community restrictions. We had the Albinism Association represented at the forum, and they made a lot of contributions. And then also parents of children with disabilities need state back training and support. And actually, I mean, their situation is very, very, very bad. I mean, and it's an area that we really need to pay attention to, because even as we talk about disability, sometimes we forget that we have people that have to care for people with autism and other kinds, and there's really no support, no state support at all for that group, because they are not directly persons with disability. But they have to sacrifice all their time and life to ensure that their children, you know, are taken care of. And the state doesn't really provide any support. So we met the association there as well, and I think that's an important area. And then healthcare must end professional stigma and better serve PWDs with regular staff evaluations on disability issues. So that's more in the labor front, and you know how we implement these policies. Employment, it was noted that employment policies tend to favor PWDs with formal education, rejection of qualified PWDs from working in governmental institutions. On healthcare issues with medical coverage, most facilities are not disability friendly. Public space accessibility, participants express their challenges with accessibility to public transport. And then the free tertiary education implementation, PWDs struggle to access tertiary education due to limited implementation of inclusive policies. Free education often excludes private institutions. Assistive devices are insufficient. Campuses lack accessibility, and medical proof requirements can be a barrier. So I think government's policy, I think that the tertiary, I think that's a full payment for tuition for persons with disability. And some of those things will come and help in this area. So generally, collect and maintain disaggregated data on PWDs to inform targeted policies, launch nationwide anti-stigma campaign, and engage traditional leaders as change agents, enforce the mandated 5% employment reservation for PWDs in government agencies, increase the District Assembly Common Fund allocation to 5%. I think it's 5% already. It's 3%. Oh, it's been reduced. Okay. All right. And then improve distribution based on actual PWD needs. Enhance specialized medical coverage to include more disabilities, and improve healthcare facilities aimed at PWDs. And then enforce compliance with Ghana accessibility standards for built environments. And that's, I mean, sometimes when you look at some of these ramps, even able-bodied people cannot go up the ramp, let alone persons with disability. Because and I think somebody was asking me, oh, where can you find the measurements, you know, if you're building a ramp? It should be something that should be common. Like you can go on a website and get all the measurements and so on. So some of this information dissemination is really important to help ease the burden on persons with disability. Now, the elderly. So on healthcare, challenges accessing quality healthcare due to gaps in the National Health Insurance Scheme. Then the healthcare remains largely inaccessible for the elderly, especially in rural areas, with few mobile clinics or home-based care options. Seniors also lack support through local health programs such as free screenings, food aid, daycare center, and local health care. And then healthcare workers often lack training to address senior-specific needs, including communication. On Social Security and pension, elderly citizens face financial insecurity due to weak pension systems, limited work opportunities, and poor access to financial services. Many lack access to dedicated pension funds, especially those outside formal unemployment. They also face barriers to continued employment with few part-time options and limited private sector inclusion. And I can say that these days, when you consider that people are doing remote working and people have been born before computer, you know, so that option, even where part-time may be available, you cannot really even utilize that as well. Financial planning support is minimal, and retirees often face age-based loan discrimination. Yes, if you are a certain age, you can't access any credit. So people have already declared that you are on your way. So they will come. They don't want to take any risk coming to take their money back. On the economy, older citizens face limited support for economic participation with few policies enabling senior entrepreneurship. That's interesting. Seniors also lack formal representation as there is no advisory board to advocate their retraining or re-engagement in the workforce. Infrastructure and accessibility, elderly citizens face barrier in public transport and space access. Public spaces are often poorly designed for elderly needs with inadequate seating, inaccessible footbridges, buildings that fail to meet accessibility standards, including restrooms, staircases, which are unsuitable for seniors. And the special town hall forum for the youth on employment and education, young people face limited access to skills training and employment opportunities, especially in underserved areas. Youth employment programs are often not inclusive or widespread. Job creation policies lack regular input from key stakeholders, weakening their effectiveness. Small and medium enterprises also face inadequate support with limited funding and few incentives to grow. On constitutional review and youth participation, citizens face unequal application of the law and limited access to justice. Legal literacy efforts are insufficient, and unchecked executive powers undermine democratic accountability. So that's what the youth are saying, that nobody is, I mean, we say we are equal before the law, but some are equal than others. So they want the Constitutional Review Committee to look at it. And then also literacy. We are not all lawyers, but it seems like sometimes when the conversation is going, if you are not a lawyer, you can't understand it. So how do we improve legal literacy all around so we can assert our rights? Strengthen and make accessible skills training programs regardless of locality. Increase funding and incentives for SMEs led by young entrepreneurs. Decentralize the school feeding program to regional levels and align with local food production cycles. I was in Tamale and I was like, this absolutely makes sense, because the lady who made this intervention was basically saying, why is it that everybody who is doing the school feeding program have to eat rice or, you know, a certain type of food everywhere across the country? Because in the north, there are certain seasons for maize, there are certain seasons, and because when the seasons are there, the food is cheaper, so the menu should reflect the production cycle so that it's cheaper for government, you know, to be able to provide meals that are nutritious for the citizens. Rather than this everywhere, same sort of food, which then tends to be expensive because we have to go and import rice or do this and so on and so forth. So they were saying that we should decentralize the school feeding program to regional levels and align with local food production cycles. And then prioritize student loan over allowances for more timely financial support, create meaningful spaces for youth participation in governance and decision-making processes. Young people are really interested in engaging. And we have to find a systemic way of keeping them engaged so that they can contribute to development. So lastly, just a few points on in terms of our conclusion. The discussions highlight a strong citizen desire for more accountable, transparent, and inclusive governance structures that address Ghana's national and development challenges. They reveal widespread concerns about corruption, with citizens demanding stronger accountability mechanisms and effective enforcement. Constitutional reforms, particularly regarding the Council of State, the dual role of MPs as ministers, were prominently discussed, with many participants advocating for clearer separation of powers. Citizens expressed the need for reforming the Council of State to enhance transparency, effectiveness, and accountability. And the town hall meetings also showed strong support for electing MMDs, DCs, making politics less costly and more transparent. People want better funding for primary schools, improved teaching in rural areas, and fixes to free SHS before expanding it. To support youth, there were calls for more investment in farming, skills training, youth businesses. Forums for women, youth, and the elderly and persons with disability highlighted for the need for fair representation, better health care, job opportunities, and stronger systems. Thank you very, very, very much. It's been a long conversation, but we wanted to, as much as possible, capture everything that was discussed.
Thank you, Dr. Kwajo Asante, for giving us the findings from the various town hall meetings that we had. Fortunately for us, the various institutions that will lead the implementation of the findings are with us here, and I believe the notes that they have taken, they will use that to help develop and implement policies to address the concerns from Ghanaians. So where we are now, we have to get feedback from all of us here on the findings that she presented. So we are ready for your comments and questions. Please, you mention your name and the institution, then the question follows. Okay, so Daniel, you can take the microphone round. If you have any question or comment from the findings that Dr. Kwajo Asante gave, kindly let us know. Okay, Daniel, send the microphone.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Ewusi Akon. I'm the National Youth Organizer for the People's National Convention. Let me thank Dr. Pumpuni for a very good work done. I believe that the presentation before us truly represents the aspirations and the desires of the Ghanaian people. Unfortunately, these are issues that have been discussed over and over and over these years. The biggest challenge had to do with the political will to ensure that the positions raised or the concerns raised will be adhered to. if we look at the directive principle of state policies, especially on economic objectives, that the state is mandated to ensure that we are able to manage national economy to maximize economic development, to secure maximum welfare, freedom, and happiness for every person. This government or political parties that have assumed power have failed. They have failed. So I am praying that we are able to adhere to some of the positions that people have raised, just so that we can have a better future for ourselves. One thing also had to do with, and it didn't reflect here, the powers of the president. The president of Ghana has so much powers than the president of America. And I am very happy Professor H. Prempeh is here, that his Constitutional Review Committee would look at that very, very well. I'm saying this because there are some institutions that I think the president must not make appointment to. Number one, the Electoral Commission. And number two, the Inspector General of Police. If you take, for instance, the Electoral Commission, who or which president will appoint someone he or she do not trust would help him or her win an election? And if you look at what have happened in some past years, recent years, we all saw the negative effect on our elections. And so, Prof, I pray that you look into that aspect of our challenge where the powers of the president, at least, should be looked at, so that it will also reflect in the Council of States whether to abolish them or not to abolish them. I believe and feel that they're doing a very good job, but the perception the Ghanaian people are now having for them is becoming questionable. So please, Prof. H, let's look at that too in a very beautiful context. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I hope I can sit, boss.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Listening to Kojo, I realized that the people of Ghana have really become very informed. For some of the issues raised in the regions, I think sometimes we don't even interrogate them. Perhaps maybe because Doug has dealt with them so much over the years, he's able to then appreciate the issues and bring them into context. But for me, clearly, it's shown that we really need to have things done differently. And my difficulty now would be, we have issues that have to deal with constitutional clauses that would have to change. In some of them, they are entrenched. So I agree again with you that Prof and his committee would then have to, my brother is here, Prof Secretary, you would have to see how we navigate some of these challenges, because we need them. He proposes something and he's a citizen. I believe we should add that into this report. I'm equally a citizen. I support that. The powers of the president transcend understanding. We need to ensure that I really, sometimes I think about it and I don't understand why anybody decided that we should do what we did in our constitution. When even the powers, perhaps maybe because we're blending different systems, so it's acceptable. But we've gone 30 years down the line, and for a people, change is important. I believe we need to begin to look at that. Another issue for me, Kojo, that maybe the citizens didn't talk about, which is a song we must all sing in the fight against corruption, is the fact that we need to regulate the conduct of public officers. And in that, we know the president has produced a document for his appointees, but we need something that would help us, that all of us are able to hold public officers accountable. So by legislation now, I don't know how we can add it into chapter 24, 284, 285, 286, and 7, how we reflect those changes as well. So for me, I believe that is very important. Another issue then with the fight against corruption, for me, which perhaps the other citizens didn't talk about, which I want to talk about, is the issue around corruption reporting, whistleblowing, whistleblower protection, and witness protection. We currently have a law in place. The witness protection law was passed. It has not been actualized. A commission was supposed to be set up to ensure that the commissioners work. Since 2019, I think it's been too long. We have a Witness Protection Act which is not implemented. How long do we put in place the architecture to ensure that it works? I don't know. But I believe that it's high time we do that. Some of the reviews that we have done around also our Whistleblower Act should also apply. We should be seeing it more because citizens are not emboldened to report as they would want to. And you realize from the oral, which we all applaud the current government for putting in place, that the oral facilitated a process where people came together to report. But then the challenge that arose, which we haven't spoken to, they said they got over 1,000 reports, but at the end of the day, they were recommending about 200 and something, and even that is a key challenge for many of us. So you would realize that at the end of the day, perhaps we won't get up to 20 of those cases. So we need to strengthen the system to be able to do that. I think one of the things that Kojo said, which sank well with me, is the elections, the cost of elections and the period. Citizens have seen the difficulties and challenges with campaigning. I believe that as societies grow, perhaps the developed world also experience what we are experiencing now. But as we grow, it's come time that we delimit some of the things we are doing around campaigning. Governance is all about campaigning after people have won power and continue. So how do we then actualize these beautiful proposals that have been made by the citizens? Cut the period of campaigning to a maximum of 6 months and a minimum of 3 months. Then perhaps after the campaigning, ensure that we put in place some regime that also sanctions, because it's because of a lack of sanctions, people continue to carry on the way they do with impunity. So let's ensure that that is done. On the issue of politicization and the impunity of which we are all experiencing, I don't know how we are navigating that space. Did the citizens say anything about it apart from just sanctioning? Kojo and those who went to the field, I may want to know that. Thank you very much.
Any other person? Daniel?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Emmanuel Abe, a rep from NALAG. My question is, when you were delivering the report, you made mention of the fact that you only covered 12 out of the 16 regions. The remaining 4, I want to know what were or was your reason for excluding them, and that their exclusion did not have any effect on some of the findings that you came up with. Thank you.
Okay. Please, Dr. Santi, will you answer that question before? Yeah.
Money matters. Oh, money matters. Yeah, we would have loved to do all the system, but for our financial constraints, we couldn't. But what then we tried to do was to make sure that out of the, so for the 10 that we selected, so, you know, like in the areas like Bono East and so on, you can select one and you still be able to reach. And then we're also doing broadcasting. So some of the platforms that we use were able to cover other regions. But what then we did was to make sure that for our specialized town halls, we were able to take it to regions that we were not included in the 10 regional. So we did the youth one in Tamale in the northern region, and then we did the women one in Ho in the Volta region. For PWDs and elderly, because of the logistics, we had to do it in Accra. But as much as possible, we try to make up for those gaps. Yes, I'm not as to whether or not if it reflects. I think we weren't in Savannah, right? We weren't in Savannah and other places. No, I don't know. I can't tell if there could have been some more issues to do with areas where there were some specific sort of rural challenges. But the whole idea is that even in some of those places, I think the radio stations that we chose could reach, capitals there. So we felt that at least people could still participate, even if we're not there physically.
Thank you, Daniel. There's a hand up.
Good morning, Dr. Santi. My name is Nana Ouo Ado from Daily Searchlight newspaper. I'm a journalist. I have two issues to talk on. If we look at certain state organizations who are making huge losses, and yet their CEOs, the money they take, can rebuild Ghana. Mr. Honorable Kujo, the former MP for his second year, I've forgotten his constituency, Ifia or whatever. He came to a press meeting and asked him why. He said, well, yeah, they're making losses, but they are trying to put certain measures in the way to reduce the losses. I said, wow, it's only here in Ghana. People take petrol. In fact, most of the fuel that we are consuming in this country are taken by these CEOs. Huge ones. And so I think that something must be done. The history behind this was that when, after the revolution, there were a shortage of experts in certain government organizations. So the idea was that bring in these experts, let them come give us our knowledge so that we can revamp and maybe retrofit some of these organizations. But for now, I don't see any significant impact that they have made on the state organizations. So the size must be properly structured. I don't see why someone can take, say, 125,000 Ghana cedis plus all the other allowances when the middle level personnel are taking home with nothing, absolutely. My second issue has to do with Kalamse. I think during Honorable Abujinapo's this tenure, whenever he came to the press at the Information Ministry, I told him that before we can fight the Galamsey fight and win, we must suspend surface mining. Go back to the drawing board, sit down, do serious pondering and thinking, and see what we can do to bring it down considerably. Because what we are doing now is just scratching the surface of the matter. It will not wash. I think recently a couple of bishops went to the president and said he should declare state of emergency. But I strongly believe that if we suspend surface mining now and then sit down and see how best we can fight the fight or bring out the modalities or whatever programs that we can, I think that it will come assuage what we are suffering now. Thank you very much.
Okay. From Education Watch.
Yes, I would want to say something small about education financing. After our analysis for the education budget this year, I just want to talk a little about GET Fund, which we all know goes into infrastructure. This year's allocation for GET Fund was about 10 billion Ghana cedis, which is unprecedented compared to last year's 3.9 billion. Now, out of the 10 billion, 6.7 billion is allocated to second cycle institutions. Out of that 6.7 billion, 3.5 billion alone goes into free SHS, which is even almost close to the allocation from the previous year. If you want to know how much was allocated to basic school, which is the foundation of education in the country, it's just 1.34 billion. So that speaks to what the people are saying. If education is really going to matter in this country, basic education should be one thing that should really be looked at. And this document is up for grabs, so if you need it, you can just let me know. Thank you.
You're welcome. We are still live on Adom FM, Adom TV, Joy FM, Joy News, and Asempa FM. Okay, Professor Insaidu.
I hope I'm allowed to sit. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I was listening to the findings being presented. I was just thinking about how that can work in terms of policy decisions and planning. And the first thing that came to mind when I heard of limited resources, amalgamating district boundaries, and also considering the fact that some districts have limited resources. One of the things that immediately came to mind was fiscal decentralization and the capacity of the districts and municipalities to mobilize resources on their own, not always depending on government, central government for resources. Aside the allocation of resources or revenues to the districts and municipalities, what can the municipality assemblies themselves do in terms of mobilizing resources? Then the other thing that came to mind when discussions were going on as to whether MPs should be allowed to become ministers of state, whether there should be separation. Those who become ministers of state should not be the same as those who are in parliament. And I was thinking it's all about value for money. It's all about cost-benefit analysis, right? If you separate them, how much would an MP take? How much would a minister of state take? And what their contribution to output of or delivery of services be like? So cost is about cost-benefit analysis. Then the third thing that came to mind when the discussions went on about availability of teachers in our local communities, I was thinking it's all about differentials in allowances, differentials in compensation, and what other benefits are there for those who go to our local communities to work. If we give them something extra that would keep them there, that would make them happier, then we can also attract our teachers in big cities and towns to also move there, because when they go, cost of food, feeding, obviously will be cheaper in those streets. They will save. So differentials in compensation, I think, would be the way out. Then the other one about youth development and the economy, youth development or youth employment or job creation, it's not just about, if we talk about agriculture being a means by which we can create jobs for the youth, I don't think we should just focus on primary production, but think about must have a comprehensive plan to develop the agriculture value chain. And not just that, but also think about cross-border agriculture value chain development. And that, there's so much smuggling, especially when we talk about cocoa, right? Because of differences in prices, right? So if we have a way of coming together and integrating and harmonizing policies, I think that would be a way of creating jobs, not just creating. If you create a job at a specific stage along the value chain, it draws in activities in other stages along the value chain. So that's what came to mind when I was listening.
No, just on the separation of powers question. So I think there were multiple things that citizens expressed. So the cost-benefit analysis, I recall very well that it was one of the arguments that President Akufo Addo made when he was talking about his 100 and so ministers, that most of them were MPs. And therefore, basically, we're getting value for money because if you are an MP, you are taking, whether you take the salary as the minister or you take the salary as an MP, it's not double, right? Even though we know that there was also a scandal about double salaries, which we never resolved. But there were the issues that citizens raised was on checks and balances, that if you are an MP minister, you're just not able to perform your oversight function because you're more likely to serve the executive and therefore not available to really do your checks and balances. It creates a conflict of interest that often you're not able to resolve. But several studies, Odikro, that tracks parliamentary performance for many, many years, shows that MPs who are ministers tend to be high on the list of truant MPs. Right? So over the years, consistently, and you would understand that if you're a minister, and sometimes they are even regional ministers, so you're not even available in parliament to do parliamentary work, which is also essential. And oftentimes they always lose their seat. So even for the MPs themselves, it's never a good thing that you are a minister. You might get additional resources or opportunities, but then they will hold it against you that you are never in your constituency, and that you end up also losing your seat. So I think we've come to a point where if you say value for money, not just on the monetary terms, but in terms of all the responsibilities that MPs or ministers have to perform, you realize that we are not getting it for either. And so we need to completely relook at the current arrangement.
Okay. Doc, thank you very much for the presentation. In fact, I share in the sentiment of the earlier speaker, but then in your presentation you mentioned that I'm Solomon Yanka. I work with the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. So you mentioned that some of the issues, we've discussed them over and over and over, and we are still here talking about the same issues. And when you also look in the room, we have a number of government agencies. But then after the discussion, we go back to sleep and we don't see much action. So for me, my call is that after presenting the report to the president or any authority, it shouldn't just end there, but then we should also hold them to ensure that they implement whatever interventions in there. We also want to see that we know that development is not an event, but a process. Given our challenges, as much as possible, we should ensure that we follow through with whatever implementation that we need to do. Aside that, let me touch on the free SHS in education. For me, the free SHS policy is a good intervention, but I believe that we can also take another approach with the intervention of the Ghana card, which I know not all Ghanaians have, but then we can look at it and prioritize so that those who can pay should be made to pay, and those who cannot pay, we can pay for their awards. Because I'll use myself as an example, and then let's say the Minister of Education. The two of us, we can't have the same benefit. We are already providing everything, including their fuel, their household allowances and all that. And at the end of the day, if my ward is to enjoy the same benefit with the minister, then I think it's not in the right direction. So this is something that we need to look at it, so that we can start with those who have the Ghana card, where we can assess to see those who can pay and those who cannot pay. And also on the issue of, you touch on the infrastructure and accessibility, and then PWDs. One of the things that we've also realized is that even after the passage of our building code and the accessibility standard over years, we still have public infrastructure that are not disability friendly. And I'm sharing this because I happen to be in one of our public universities where we had to carry someone in wheelchair from the down floor to, I think, about the third floor, just to access the facility, which is not good. So for me, these are things that we should channel our energies towards. So this is what I have to add. Thank you.
I thought, okay, no, just, oh yes, I just want, just for information. So in terms of our action point, this document for us is a reference point. As for the work, what we are doing aligns with all that you are hearing. As many people have confirmed, this is not the first time we've talked about this. But it's to keep reminding us that what we are doing is exactly what the citizens also want. So it's a reference point for us. When the budget is coming, we need to be checking to see whether these priorities are being taken care of. When the president is supposed to prepare with the NDPC, the coordinated program for socio-economic development and so on, we need to see if these priorities are captured. So I think that's the effort. That's for everybody that's working in this area, is to say that these are priorities that citizens have identified. They align with what we have been advocating for many years. We just have to make sure that in government's expenditure, in government's priorities and other actions, we see elements of that in there. That's the only way in which we'll be able to respond to those needs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asante and your team at the CDD for this work. This is a priceless piece of work for any government, and not only any government, but even any serious opposition party. Because for an opposition party, this serves as a benchmark to monitor and deal with the incumbent, even opportunistically. My main question or query is, there were a number of things concerning health when you deal with the elderly and so on. Was there any issue raised concerning the national health insurance and its relevance in all of this?
I think yes, that was raised. Dr. Isiasa is also here. Maybe she can shed some light on that. But yes, I think the coverage issue, because seniors were raising certain concerns that there are different types of health needs that are not necessarily covered under the NHIS, and of course, even the functioning of, we know that's another problem. So I am, at least the elders platform that Dr. Isiasa and her colleagues have been mobilizing. There's a lot to take further on this, because a lot of issues have been raised. There has to be more engagement with SNIT on pensions issues, with the National Health Insurance Scheme. because I think this is a way to also now create action points for trying to remedy some of these issues. So we have indicated our willingness to work together to push some of these issues. But I think we should be meeting with these institutions to put forward some of the issues that have been raised and see what can be done to alleviate the challenges.
Dr. Esiaza, would you like to speak to it? Okay. Yes.
I have the microphone. So I am Kojomin Sabrampa. I work with Adum TV and Adum FM. The issue raised about basic education. Anytime we talk about basic education, our attention shifts to teacher ratios at various rural schools. But in urban and peri-urban communities, since we have not been able to increase the infrastructure, you will go to a school here in Accra and you see a population of 80 people in a classroom. 80. And you expect the people who will be writing BEC on the 9th of next month, June, to be doing well as their colleagues in a class of 30, 15, and 25. So imagine a teacher in a class of 80, a class teacher, or a subject teacher, a class of 80 students teaching them. But when we talk about, if you look at the statistics in terms of financing that Edward guy put across, senior high school is getting more than double of that money. And yet they are doing double track. Because the teachers should be able to have equal attention to the students so that they will be able to perform and perform well. But same cannot be said of the basic schools that we'll be talking about. A time ago, I did a report that headmasters have to pay capitation grant with their pocket money. And some were even on retirement. Vendors were on their neck. So I think that the issue of financing basic education, we should be hammering it the more. Because if we don't build the foundation the more, the free SHS we are talking about, we are not going to get any better results as a result of it. Because if we push all of them from basic education, the foundation, which we are not building it well, to secondary education, then we ask ourselves, what future are we building for ourselves as a country? Thank you.
Please, any other comments or feedback? Okay. Then I would like to invite Dr. Kojo Asante to give us a closing remark.
All right, thank you, Joseph. Even though we are live on Asempa and Adom, I would have loved to sort of explain everything else I've said in Chi, but it means that we have to extend the session for maybe another hour or so. But I'm hoping my friends from Adom would do justice so that we can have a follow-up discussion in the local language, so our citizens can also benefit from this session. Just to say that, first of all, we are happy that we were able to do the forums and do it this early. It's just about five months or so since the new government started work. So whatever expectations or issues that have been raised, we can put it into all of the different processes that government has set in place to try to respond to our development challenges. Only to say thank you to FCDO, colleagues, Clara, and so who've been helping us since they also supported the elections. And this is also a testament to the commitment that, democracy is not just about elections, but, it's also the governance process, the quality of the governance process, and they've shown the commitment to that. All our partners who helped us to mobilize citizens from across the country, we also thank you. you know, all of our staff that have been working on this report. The report is almost ready. We'll put some of the interesting issues. I think our colleague from Adom who raised the issue about urban, more people are living in the urban space now. And so there are peculiar issues that are also coming up in the urban space that we have to pay attention to. And thank you for that. That's a very, very important issue that you put on table. So, you know, capture some of these elements and put this report together and disseminate it as widely as we can. But thank you again for coming, and have a good rest of the day. And thank you to the also for spending time with us this morning. Thank you.
So the next room to my left, our snack is ready. So as we are preparing to leave, we can just pass by to grab something. Thank you very much.